All right, we are back and ready to get started with our next presenter, who is Dan James, who is the CEO of Madden Media. My guess is most of you are familiar with Madden. They have run a lot of programs through our co-op program, and I can tell you, I review the results of each and every ad that runs through that program, and they have never to date had an ad run and perform below industry standards for us. They always not just exceed, but exceed really, really high on those industry standards. So Dan is going to join us today and talk about social media and how social has changed through all of this and what you and your businesses can do to adapt and how to get your message out. So Dan, it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate it. As I get my video up here and screen to get the presentation going, let me first start by saying, one, thank you for inviting us. Thank you for allowing us to participate with the co-op. Thank you to so many of the partners that work with us and have the ability to do that, perform and exceed those standards that you just mentioned that's out there. As we look at where we're at and this time in such a unique time, I have to say thank you to the State Tourism Office, to your destinations, to the hoteliers, to everybody in the industry. Roger talked about how well you guys are doing compared to everybody else. And it's a function of not just the assets that you have, but all of the work that's been done across the board to make sure that you have the ability to have safe travel and to really give that opportunity to visitors that they're needing right now, and that they need to get out of the box that is their home that sometimes feels like you're trapped in right now. So thank you for all that you're doing and that you're continuing to do. As we jump in here, wanted to talk a little bit about social media and how social media tactics are shifting as a result of COVID-19 and what we're seeing in this space. First, often, this is the key component that Roger mentioned this morning, is that it is, and Longwoods as well, is that should be focused on responsible travel and sustainable travel. And we used to talk about sustainable travel as we thought about urban tourism and so many other elements of when we had tourism at its peaks. Now, when we talk about responsible travel, we want to make sure social media is showcasing that it's safe travel and has the ability not just to see people en masse, to see people engaged, but gives them the information and the insight to know how to be safe for themselves and how to be safe for others as we think about messaging that needs to be out there. The second piece here is you just heard briefly from BDK talking about how streaming has been such an increase in what everybody's households are. I know that we somehow got a discount by increasing our bandwidth and increasing our streaming just by doing that 6-month rotation or saying, hey, what's going on now in the deal? That's been fantastic, but a lot of other people are doing that. But what that means is that you have more time streaming, but you also have more time with dual devices. And this is a function where people are constantly connected and even more connected to not just their jobs, but to social media than they've ever been. We're seeing increasing social media usage. We're seeing increasing streaming. So the ability to actually capture the consumer's attention continues to be a challenge, and sometimes even more difficult than what it's been in the past, because there's so much coming at them, whether it's the election environment or whether it is safety messaging around COVID and what's going on with the rate of spread in their communities or their states, or what their friends, family are doing. Oh, and yes, advertising. And yes, how do I escape? How do I get out there? So being able to give people a strong visual engaging sense is going to be really important. And the third part is about being intentional. We all know research is such a core component of going into any effective marketing plan, but choosing the right audience, the right objectives, the placements, and the right formats, and the right platforms. We all have seen the growth of TikTok. We've seen where Snapchat is and Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, all of them have different audiences, and all of them have different types of measurements and tools that we want to be able to use. And we just want to be really intentional about what our goals are and start with those goals from the very beginning. So I'm first going to talk about responsible travel. And responsible travel is safe travel. And this is where you provide those visuals with within your campaigns and within your organic messaging that shows those masks and shows how social distancing measures are applied. As your destination starts to open back up, start showing what those rules look like, start showing that authentic messages, those authentic images, so people can see what they've been dreaming about, and they can see that what they've been dreaming about, what they've been planning for is coming to life as we look across the space. The second part is empathize with your consumers. And this is one of the things that is unique to social media in so many ways, is you have the ability to have that conversation with them and give them, have what feels like that personal conversation or that one-on-one conversation that allows you to empathize with them, that allows you to talk about how they are having cabin fever, allows you to talk to them in a way that is different than big broadcast branding or big campaigns and display messaging. You can engage with them, you can ask them questions, you can use polls, you can tell stories, and you can have so much fun with what you're doing as you think about where they're at and where they're going to be. So one of the things that their biggest concerns are, and you see this out of the Longwoods research, is that they're concerned about safe travel, and they want to have masks in place, or they need to know if they can open up your destination is open. Giving them that insight and saying, yes, travel is new, travel is different, and engaging with them in that way gives them a good way to understand that and connect with you as a brand and you as a destination, versus just saying, come here, come visit right now, come visit, plan now. Like, but people don't want that big in your face message right now. They want to be pulled in, they want to be talked to, and they want that conversation, which leads to the third point about how we communicate on social media now. And that's that last part of reassurance. And this is showing that they can travel safely. Use your content creators, your local creators that show that authentic view of what your destination looks like. If you are tied into audiences that you want to bring in and have some of those travel influencers, the social media influencers, it's now time to start thinking about bringing them in. So think about how you engage them and capture their audiences. But in some ways, it's not about their audiences and distribution, where we used to put in the initial focus when we brought in influencers. It's about getting those new assets, getting those new stories, that new engagement of what life is like traveling. So as you think about engaging any social media influencers, you want to be able to make sure you can get that insight and those stories on your website to help with your SEO, get those images to be able to use in your social media and your other platforms that you have there. Second part is that visual component. What does visual mean on social media right now? And the first is, how do you get them to stop the scroll? You've seen already today just that little change of what it's like to be a little bit more interactive, to have those polls, to engage. There's so many different ways that we can be interactive, both through organic and paid, on your Facebook feeds or Instagram or any of the social channels that allow you to engage with those consumers. And whether it's an instant experience ad that shows the different elements that are out there, or stories that are showing things, find ways to use your creative assets to be more interactive. We're seeing performance constantly improving, constantly doing better as we look at how performance is working for those versus just static images, engagement, and whatnot you have there with text and simple images. The other part of this is on video, and video in a couple of different ways. One is, as you think about video in your larger strategy, video distribution is becoming, is always going to be there, but video consumption has dramatically increased. And you want to have this available not just on your Facebook feed, but on your YouTube channel as we think about the broader part of what we see in social media. Because when people search now, they're searching differently, and they expect the results to be more visual or more audible. when we think about this. And we think about it in the Google Home, which sometimes interrupts me in meetings, as the case is. That's always has something that wants to know if it can help me with. But when you think about YouTube and you think about video, think about the DIY videos that you've done. Think about that fan that you fixed that was unbalanced that you're working on. You've consumed that video differently now, and consumers want to have that same sort of content, that same sort of story, and inside of what it's like when I travel now. And then as you think about larger elements of why are people going to not just see that beautiful image, why are they going to stay just a little bit longer with on your social media channel or click to your site? That's when you start thinking about how do you get that storytelling element, not just the eye-catching images, but the story of what it was like, that trip of what it was when you were out in the snow and you were snowshoeing or skiing, or you were whitewater rafting in the summer. What happened? Like that fear, the emotions that went through there. You get people into that story and focused on an individual. It captures their imagination. It gets them excited about how they're going to can move to your destination, how they can envision themselves in that story that they can make for themselves. I talked a little bit about audiences and while we talked about interactive and storytelling, getting that early traveler, identifying those people that have the highest travel intent signals, those are the things that we really want to see in your messaging, because we want to get those first movers, and we want to keep the first movers moving out in a safe way from a travel standpoint as we move ahead. And then the third point here is about intentional planning. And intentional planning is how we really drive the core results, and how we want you to really think about your social media engagement and how you engage on this. And the first part is thinking through what are your goals. And those goals translate into what we like to call conversions, and how do you have the defined measures you want to have in order to say, these are the things we want a consumer to do on our social media channel. These are the things we want a consumer to do on our website. This is the path we want them to take when they're engaging. We do this because we want to be able to say, what price should you associate with it? Because too often we're stuck in saying, hey, how many clicks, how many impressions, how many of X have we yelled at the consumer and pushed to the consumer? But if we really want to communicate to the consumer, and we really want to engage with them, we want to bring in the conversions to say, hey, did you not just see what you had? Did you engage with us? Did you get that video view that completed? Did you actually click to the site and get deeper into the story to be like, I could see myself going, I really want to go, and I really want to engage there as we think about what those conversions are. And that's why we want to set those up. That's why we want to think about user discovery and how you think about how your website's performing next to your social media channels and what's in that space. The second part is audience. And audiences literally could be its own session here of how you not just identify where your audiences are, but also test the messages that are going to each different audiences, what the travel intent is, and the geographic goals. And I've mentioned travel intent here just a couple of times. And I want to spend just a minute on it, because we think travel intent is so much more beneficial in how we're seeing media perform now than traditional demographic and personas that you may be used to. Because what we're seeing with travel intent is, or with personas rather, is that it was who is traveling. And when you think about who is traveling, it's about who we are targeting, who we're engaging with, and almost this like very militaristic piece of we're going to put this message on target, and we're going to capture this audience, and you see that. But when you think about intent, you're trying to be there for the consumer, because if when you think about travel intent, it's why they're traveling. So when the consumer's engaging with you, they're like, I'm thinking about whitewater rafting, I'm thinking about fly fishing, or I'm thinking about hiking, I'm thinking about finding out if there's bands in the area. Is there any place that's opened back up there? They're searching for something, and the goal that we want to see both in messaging as well as your engagement on social media is how are you their answer versus how are we targeting there. There's a whole other discussion about bias and personas, and how when you have a persona, you sometimes exclude audiences. And as saw this year, the importance of being inclusive is so important, not just to our media, our communities, but being important to our media efforts as well, to make sure that everybody is represented and everybody is encouraged to travel as we recover and return to some sort of normalcy here. And the last part is platform. It's easy to say Facebook is that place to be and Instagram's that place to be because it's the easiest place to engage. It's the easiest place to talk about audiences, to get those visuals. Consumers know it. But we've seen a tremendous amount of performance around LinkedIn, especially as we start thinking about social media planners. You heard Roger talk a little bit this morning about how we encourage business travel to come back. That's where we want to start encouraging some of those messages. Good opportunity to partner with your EDCs, with your chambers, to help share why it's great to do business and why it's great to meet in a destination. And we really see that as an area to focus, especially as we go into Q1 and as we start seeing the opportunity to open up our communities and open up business travel and meetings and conventions again. We of course have TikTok. TikTok's got its own algorithms, and it's I've recognizing I'm too old for TikTok. I don't have quite the dance moves or the cranberry juice evidently, but it's a great audience. We're seeing some good engagement. Their new paid platform is really starting to have some legs underneath it as well. So an opportunity to engage. But one of the ones that I'm really liking right now as we think about planning that is non-Facebook and non-Instagram is Pinterest. And Pinterest has a great organic engagement, but it's a place where people start to plan. And we've seen it being used as a tremendous planning tool. We're seeing a number of pins that are getting saved, boards that are created, whether it's planning for a vacation or whether it's planning for a specific trip that they're going for. So we're seeing some great things that are out there, and throughout this, hopefully, you've seen a little bit of some work that we've been doing across the country sprinkled in here as we get through to that space. So with that, thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit of what we're seeing on the social media spectrum, and look forward to continuing to work with you through the co-op programs directly, and really just focused on how do we bring travel back safely and bring back the jobs and the industry that's just so needed, not just in West Virginia, but across the country.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. We appreciate you always and really appreciate your time today. I know that you have probably done a million Zoom calls for all the state governors conferences, but we appreciate you doing this one. I just have one quick question for you. So you talked a lot about the changes, which I think are fascinating. We've even seen changes here in our office. You mentioned Pinterest, and we've seen an increase in web traffic and just exploration on our Pinterest page. But you also talked a lot about video content and how important that is. So if there is one destination or attraction out there that you think is really just hammering it home, is doing awesome on this video content, who would it be? I want to give folks somebody to go look for.
I've really liked what St. Louis, Anaheim, and Tampa have done. They've done a lot of different pieces that are out there, all of them a little bit different. Some of them as updates that are a little bit more from an industry standpoint, which is where Anaheim is. St. Louis has been really much more about discovery and rediscovering the area and what it's like to be in locations. I'd say that's probably the area I would lean a little bit in the most of what is it like to actually travel someplace, and you're having that conversation being in the space. And then Tampa has done some similar stuff, but it's focused a little bit more on the creators and the makers of the environment. So a little bit on the chefs and their history, and the past of what that is has been a little bit more their focus. So 3 different areas there.
Well, that's one thing we're not lacking here in West Virginia is stories about great people who are really hospitable for around the state. So thanks so much for joining us today, Dan. We appreciate your time as always. Really appreciate your insights.
Awesome, thanks.
All right. So folks, we normally would all be joining for a big lunch, and I'm so sorry that we're not doing that today, but I do ask that you spend this next hour, please go out and support a local business, whether you dine in, do carry out delivery, whatever it is, please find somebody in your area that you can support for today for lunch. And then we'll join you back here at 1 o'clock. See you soon. Enjoy your lunch.